Joining us now to break it all down is Paul Rieckhoff, host of the Independent Americans podcast. Paul, always good to see you.
You too.
So much to talk about. So currently, and this is according to the Iranian news service, the Strait of Hormuz has shut down again after Israel strikes on Lebanon. President Trump says Lebanon was not part of the ceasefire deal. Let's read a little bit of what Carolyn Levitt said about this very issue.
Lebanon is not part of the ceasefire. That has been relayed to all parties involved in the ceasefire. As you know, Prime Minister Netanyahu put out a statement last night in support of the ceasefire, in support of the United States' efforts, and he's also assured the president they'll continue to be a helpful partner throughout the course of the next 2 weeks.
Why did Israel pick now to strike Lebanon just a few hours after this 2-week ceasefire and what seemed like a path to diplomacy?
I think because they can.
That's it?
I think the reality is that America can't stop them from doing anything. And that's a really important part of what the last couple of weeks has shown, is that Israel can operate independently. And I don't think that Trump can necessarily stop them. He may have influence. He may be able to make threats. He may be able to negotiate behind the scenes. But Israel is going to do what they think they have to do to defend their own national security. And the same is true for everybody in the region. That's why what we're seeing today is probably our complicated new normal. There's a limit to how much Trump can control. And I don't think anybody wants to be the first country to send their tanker through the strait right now and have it be blown up and impact insurance rates and the entire global market. So it's a very fragile situation. And even if Trump says a ceasefire is in place, it doesn't mean they can control all the bad actors and danger in the region. And that's a real tough calculation for anybody driving a tanker right now.
Yeah, I mean, look at how empty the Strait of Hormuz is currently. Pakistan's prime minister, he said on X, of course, one of the mediators of that ceasefire, violations of ceasefire have been reported at few places across the conflict zone, which undermine the spirit of peace process. I earnestly and sincerely urge all parties to exercise restraint and respect the ceasefire for 2 weeks as agreed upon. Qatar also says its armed forces intercepted missiles and drones fired at them. Does this ceasefire seem doomed from the beginning? I do want to say we had a general on a few minutes ago, and he says the first few hours are always this fragile and this tricky. But this seems very dangerous, this rhetoric.
This entire region is always this dangerous and this tricky. And I think to assume that anything will hold is probably not grounded in reality. I think that the reality is twofold. Number one, you got a lot of bad actors in the region that you can't trust.
Of course.
Right, from Iran to even Pakistan, and some would argue Trump is one of those bad actors. Then you've got an overestimation of what they can control. I mean, the Iranian regime may not be able to control every proxy in the region. The word may not have gotten down to isolated units. And you've got folks who may just say, you know what, I don't believe in the regime. I want to hit some things. So the overestimation of the ability of these folks, especially authoritarians, to control what is a pretty disparate and fragmented military force is I think, really important here, right? They've blown a lid off this now, right? And a lot of people know they can have power and influence if they hit anything in and around the strait. I think some folks are going to take shots, and that may be beyond Trump's control. So I think the ceasefire is very, very fragile. He may want to spike the ball and claim victory, but for the folks in the region right now, it sure doesn't look like victory.
Well, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is declaring victory. Here's what he said.
Operation Epic Fury was a historic and overwhelming victory on the battlefield. A capital V military victory. By any measure, Epic Fury decimated Iran's military and rendered it combat ineffective for years to come. Together with our Israeli partners, America's military achieved every single objective, on plan, on schedule, exactly as laid out from day one.
How is this a big V, a victory, when the goal or the definition of what this war would entail was never made clear?
It's not. I mean, it's a really important point here. Nobody believes Hegseth anymore.
It's true.
The world doesn't believe Hegseth. Congress doesn't believe it. His own party doesn't believe it. Maybe the president believes him at time, but it's become ridiculous. And for him to say this is a clear, definitive military victory, it's not. It's incomplete at best. They didn't get rid of the regime. They didn't keep the strait open. They didn't secure the nukes. I mean, this is all a big incomplete right now. And he can try to spike the ball and claim victory, but he might be the only person who thinks that's true.
He did mention that the Pentagon will soon be stepping back. We have seen conflicts in the Middle East before where we have stepped back, some would say prematurely. It didn't end well, us for them or for that nation. So what do you see the strategy moving forward if we do pull our troops back?
I think the Middle East has become kind of a sucking chest wound for our military. And I think the bigger concern that I have is we continue to pump resources into that region at the expense of other enemies like China and North Korea. So I think the North Koreans, Putin, the Chinese are happy to have us continue to get pulled into a wider ongoing war in the Middle East and to have our eye taken off the ball. I think we also have to underscore Trump has said he wants forever war. He's already talking about Cuba. So he might pull back on Iran and then throttle into Cuba. So the bigger question is, can Congress stop him from doing anything? Because they didn't stop him from moving forward on Iran. They didn't stop him from potentially putting boots on the ground. I don't think they'll be able to stop him if he wants to go into Cuba or even back here in the States, deploy federal troops into cities like New York and Chicago, like he said he might around the World Cup. He's got tremendous control over our military, and almost none of it has been interrupted by either party in Congress. And I think that's the constitutional crisis we're facing, is that he can do anything he wants and nothing's stopping him.
And he knows that. The administration knows that.
Yeah.
President Trump has said that Iran went through a very productive regime change. As far as we know, that is not true. In fact, the predecessor seems more radicalized than his predecessor. Excuse me, the son seems more radicalized than his predecessor. Have we seen an Iranian regime change?
No. I mean, it's a younger, more extreme version of what we had before. The Iranians don't seem free. I think the Iranian people would tell us, most of all, if there was regime change, and they're not telling us that. They're not coming out. They're not rising up. There's no new leadership in place. And I think Trump's pulling a kind of switcheroo here. I mean, these were our enemies 48 hours ago, and now they're people we can negotiate with. It just doesn't wash with, I think, most of the world right now. And the Iranians continue to be well-established, militarily threatening, and most of all, controlling the Iranian people. I think the thing to watch is the Iranian people will tell us when they feel free, and I don't hear any of them saying that right now.
We've had a lot of military experts and commentators on this show who said this war could potentially make Iran a global superpower in the future. Do you agree with that sentiment?
I think it's improved their standing. I mean, the regime is still in place. They've still got their nukes. Oil prices have gone up, and they're in a better financial situation. And after 2 weeks, you know, the strait that was open before is now in their favor, right? It's back open again, and they're charging more money, and Trump's okay with that.
Right.
So I think their hand has been improved. I don't think there's any debating that. The question is whether they'll be able to maintain that over time, if there will be any internal pushback, and if Trump is going to continue to negotiate with them like they're reasonable actors. But they can't be trusted. We know they're brutal, and they're oppressing their own people, and until they're out of power, I don't think too much is going to change.
All right, Paul Rieckhoff, I always love talking to you in person. Thank you so much. You can listen to The Independent Americans wherever you get your podcasts. And you heard the conversation about this fragile